Bob Norton is the CEO and founding of, I'm going to screw this up, I'm sure, Tinzinga Consulting.
There you go.
Basically, he's the founder and CEO of Tinzinga Consulting, a consulting company that assists with organizational, with leadership development, strategic planning, organizational development, conflict management, and performance management. So we're really excited to have Bob here today. It's great to have him to finish out the first day of the conference. So with that, please welcome Bob Norton.
Good afternoon. Hey, have you ever had that feeling you just wanted to say to your boss, take this job and shove it? I ain't working here no more. No, you wouldn't do that. It's your boss right there. Do you remember Johnny Paycheck's song? He'd sing that song. I wonder how many people in this room have thought that to themselves in the last year or two, 3 years, 4 years, think that and going through there. I want you to do this right now. Would you turn to the person to your left or right in front and behind you and tell them, I would never say that. Go ahead and tell them right now. Tell them I'd never say that. Yeah. All right. You know, I've worked in the fire service for over 30 years. I've never put out a fire. I've never started one either. But I don't know how to help you do anything with fires. But I can help you with what you spend most of your time with, and that's each other. About 30 years ago, I started working with the fire department, and it was one of the worst organizations I've ever seen in my life. And it had a lot of problems. Everybody hated each other. Battalion chiefs hated each other. They hated the chief hated them, and it was just awful. We were able to turn that around. But one thing I have found over the time of working with chiefs and organizations all over the country and different parts of the world, I have found something in the last 2 years that really concerns me. And that's why I'm talking about what I'm talking about today. The last several years, I've heard chiefs say to me things like this. You know, I never knew this was going to be this hard. I never knew this job was going to be this tough. In fact, I never thought people would not like me like they don't like me. And some people just out and out hate me. And I never thought it was going to be this way. And the discouragement is incredible. I want to do this today. I want to hopefully give you enough material. You can take different nuggets of what I'm sharing with you that you can go back and use that will help you in the areas of dealing with things which you want to just quit and give up. But I want to talk about some things I think are important to the fire chiefs and to fire departments across the country. And something that IFC, the International Association of Fire Chiefs, asked me to do this last year for them. I did focus groups for them. Specifically, I asked one question of 10 focus groups, 20 chiefs in every focus group, from chiefs from all over the United States and Canada. And the question I asked was this: what is the biggest issue in the fire service today? What is the number one issue in the fire service today? And the top 3 issues, every single focus group gave me the same thing for the top 3. And I'm going to give you those top 3, and then I'll show you with you all 9. The first one was recruitment. They all talked about the problem they're finding with recruitment. I had chiefs say, you know, years ago, we'd have 3 jobs, 4 jobs, whatever, and we'd have people lined up to get a job. We had qualified people that would be looking for the job and wanted to have the job. But they say now if we could even get 10 qualified or even 5 qualified, we get excited. But recruitment has been an issue. The other one they told us about was retention. Retention is what I call the stickiness, the things that cause people to stick. They said loyalty is out the window. We're not keeping people in our departments. We find people that they'll get paid $5 more in another department down the road, and they'll take that job. And they said, well, how do we keep people in our departments? What do we do? And when I was amazed when I heard some of this stuff, especially I had a chief when I was dealing with the recruitment side. He's in the northeastern area of the United States. He was saying on one of the focus groups, he said, our starting salary for firefighters is over $100,000 a year. I said, and you can't get people? He said, we're struggling. The third one was succession planning. And they said, we're concerned. We have all these people that are going to be retiring, and what are we going to do to replace them? We've got these young people. They've got to get trained up to how to be an effective leader, to be a great leader. What are we going to do? Those were our top 3. I'm going to give you all 9 of the ones that came up with. So the top 3 we had. But number 4 was leadership and administrative development. They said we got to make time to train people to be better leaders and have better understanding of administrative ideas and budgets and so on. Number 5 was reimagining or rebranding the fire service to be more attractive. They said, what we're finding is a lot of people don't want to be a firefighter. It's not as attractive as it used to be. We don't have little kids wanting to be heroes like they used to be. Also, number 6 was health and wellness. We've heard a lot of this. I enjoy some of these breakout sessions I'm hearing about health and wellness. Number 7 was diversity. And then number 8 was funding for programs, apparatus, equipment, and compensation. And the last one had to do with building the IAFC membership. Those were the top 9 that we came out of the focus groups. What I want to do with you is share with you, I'm going to take each one of the top 3 and talk about them and how we can make a difference there. Here's what I want to start with, talking the idea about recruitment. Recruitment, what I find is that one of the things to help with recruitment is to change our marketing strategy. For years, I watched the marketing strategy in the fire service be marketing to 3 things. And the 3 things had to do with benefits, money, and time off. And they would talk to people, man, the benefits, the money, the time off, that's what you got to do. And here's what we find happen. When those people became employees for the fire department, they would go on, and so every year, what would they focus on? Benefits, money, and time off. And they kept doing that over and over again. I challenge departments in the future to start marketing to something different. Here's what I mean. Instead of marketing to benefits, money, and time off to become a firefighter, what if we start marketing to making it a calling? And specifically, this job is a calling. To be a firefighter, to make a difference, it's something bigger than you. One thing we talk about is make it something bigger than one person. It's something that's beyond. It's something that's got to be inside you to make a difference there. But what we're doing is we're wanting to change lives and change the world. Here's what we know. Generation Z right now, folks, they want to change the world, and they believe they can change the world. And so the idea of appealing to the idea of changing a world and making an impact, that this is really a calling to do something different, it makes a big difference. Here's what I know. The fire service changes lives, whether we realize it or not. You folks are important to every single community you're in. Without you, we would be in trouble. That message needs to be told as this job is something that's truly going to change our world. I don't know how many firefighters come to work every day thinking, today I'm going to change the world. But I wish they would. Why? Because every day they're changing someone's life. How many lives have you saved? How many people that you've gone in and helped them come out of situations that they would not be there if it was not for you? And when you start thinking about it, it makes a big difference. You think about it. There might be a little boy, a little girl, that you go to their house and you go in and you save them from some tragic thing that they're going through. And years from now, they'll remember that firefighter, that paramedic, that EMT that saved their life. And they'll say, I'm alive today because that person cared enough to take care of me. That's the calling we're talking about when it comes to recruitment. What can we do to change lives? And what can we do to communicate the message that it's a calling? Number 2, has to do with, I'm sorry. I was going to give you something else. Went too fast here. What I want to share with you is something that Palm Beach County Fire and Rescue is one of our clients. And one of the processes that we do is a thing called foundation development. Here's what we do. We go in and we help them build a vision statement, 5 words or less, and we help them build their core values up, and then we come up with something that no one else does, and we build what we call a communication behavior agreement. And it's an agreement that we take those soft skill things, those subjective things like gossip and positive attitude, and we make it into actually an objective process. And so when we do this, the process that comes out is very amazing. This video that I'm going to share with you comes from Palm Beach County. They went through this process I'm going to share with you. But I want you to notice something. Notice in here they do not talk about benefits, money, or time off. But they talk about their job is a calling. And hopefully I'm on the right slide right now. Let's pull it up. Here we go.
A lot of people who are good at what they do, but in my opinion, to be great, you must align yourself with a cause greater than yourself.
Developing moral character only comes through adversity and experience.
If I make a mistake, I have to own up to that mistake and try to right the wrong.
We have to be able to trust the people that we work with. We have to be able to believe the people we work with.
It gives us the ability to make the tough decisions, but the right decisions.
That's just something that I want to live by every single day.
You put on the gear and you do your first run up the tower. You come off the turnpike and you see the banner out front. You're a part of that.
Being able to give your input and everyone at least hearing it, I think is critical.
Caring for each other, looking out for each other.
I keep thinking of the word teamwork when I think of unity, and it's just so important that we work together as one.
I've been lucky to have great leaders as my captains throughout my career to instill that word.
That bond is what the public sees when we go out and why we work so well together. So unity is of the utmost importance.
Giving hope to the hopeless.
Being able to treat other people with the right amount of dignity, respect, just being able to extend a helping hand and showing them that you care.
Seeing somebody with a need, feeling that need and providing help.
Kindness and compassion go hand in hand, especially in the work that we do. The fact that we have such an immense amount of human contact.
You're trying to help that person solve that problem, and you're actually not suffering with them, but you're really feeling what they're feeling.
Are you holding yourself accountable when no one's looking? It's like the oxygen we breathe. It's necessary for survival. Without it, we gasp.
If I accept the responsibility to provide service to people that I have asked for the opportunity to lead, then I am accountable.
Hold me accountable because I want to do a good job. Explain to me what I didn't do so I can do it right the next time.
Everything that I work towards, I want to take ownership of that and make sure that I'm doing the best possible at what that task is.
You're accountable to your boss, you're accountable to your employees, your coworkers, and the taxpayers of Palm Beach County.
So dedication is giving everything within yourself to something.
It's the wanting to do more for somebody else. It's wanting to be a better person.
Doing our job and making sure we're on top of our game for all the skills.
Your willingness and your ability to what you can commit and what you're willing to commit.
All the blood, all the sweat, all the tears into your job, not just the things that are going to make you look good.
It's putting yourself aside and putting the bigger picture in front of you. Having a bigger goal, a bigger passion that drives you to get the job done.
These 5 words before you were not chosen lightly. Integrity, unity, compassion, accountability, and dedication. We believe the people who have a vested interest in making this department succeed well into the future are the same people who should decide exactly what we stand for. What matters most to us, what defines us.
Our union and administration joined together. Employees from every rank, every section, and every battalion met to decide our new core values. Each word has a deep meaning. Solidarity is the key to advancing forward. Ask yourself, what matters to you?
With that also comes Palm Beach County Fire Rescue's new 2020 vision.
Excellence today, because we know our people are already doing amazing work. We're breaking boundaries in science and customer service every day and challenging ourselves to do our best.
And improving tomorrow, because we know we can always do better. We can always learn. We can always grow.
So did you notice in that video, there was not one word said about money, benefits, and time off. They talked about something bigger than themselves. They talked about what would make a difference in their community and the lives of the people they touched, working with each other and also working with the community. So I think that first part, the calling is so important. But the second thing, this is dealing with retention. Retention, I believe that's important for that stickiness we talk about, getting people to stick and having that loyalty has to do with what I call your core. What I find is when there's organizations that we work with that truly tap into someone's core, you watch that person want to be a part of that department and that organization ongoing. They don't want to leave. And so when we think about it, I want to give you 3 specific values that need to be at a core that I think cause people to truly have that loyalty we talk about. The first one is character. Character is the ability to carry out a good resolution long after the mood in which it was made has left you. Let me say it again. Character is the ability to carry out a good resolution long after the mood in which it was made has left you. In our company, we call it your FUFT, your follow-up and your follow-through. One thing we know is if we lack in follow-up and follow-through, we're going to lose credibility and we're going to lose trust. When leaders stop following and following through, people stop trusting them, stop believing in them. They lose their credibility. If employees stop following up and following through, the same thing happens. That character is so vital to what's going on. I think of character and I think of how it moves people to do great things. I don't know if you were alive in 1988, but in 1988 there was a huge earthquake in Armenia. And if any of you were alive at that time, if you remember on TV, we saw piles of rubble everywhere in Armenia. Out of that earthquake in 1988 came a great story about a father and a son. This father had always told his son, when you need me, son, I will be there. You need me, I'll be there. What a great thing to say for co-workers to each other. He said, you need me, I'll be there. After the earthquake took place, his wife was okay. He wanted to get down to the school where his son was. And he got down to the school and he saw the same thing all of us did on TV, where he saw just big piles of rubble. And he watched, and there's parents that were standing around this rubble and they were weeping and crying. And he looked at me, he looked back and forth, he walked over and I said, I think it's about right here. And he started removing rubble to get back to his son's classroom. As he was removing that rubble, the parents came over and said, what are you doing? He said, I always promised my son I would be there for him. I want to get to him. You want to help me? And they said, you know, our children are dead. Why are you even doing this? He says, I want to get to my son. A few minutes later, the police came up and said, sir, there's looting in the streets. People are firing guns. You've got to get out of here. You've got to protect yourself. He said, I always promised I'd be there for my son. Will you help me get to my son? And they said, sir, we will, but we have to go take care of some other things. We'll be back. And then the fire department came. And the fire department said, sir, there's gas lines have been broken. There could be explosions. There could be problems here in this area. You need to remove yourself. He said, I always promised I'd get to my son. I'd be with my son. I'd help my son if he needed me. Will you help me get to my son? And they said, sir, we will. We just got to take care of one more item. We'll come back here and we'll help you. That father removed rubble for 8 hours straight. He removed rubble for 16 hours straight. He removed rubble for 24 hours straight. He removed rubble for 36 hours straight. In the 36th hour, he removed one piece of concrete, threw it over to one side, and there's a little opening that opened up. And he got down on his knees and he yelled this out, Armin! Armin! And then that father said he heard the most wonderful sound he's ever heard. He heard this voice say this, Dad, is that you? And then he heard his son say this, see, I told you my dad would come. I told you he would get us out of here. And here's what happened. In Armin's classroom, one wall fell on top of another wall, and his whole classroom was saved. And the father said, come on, Armin, let's get out. And Armin said, no, Dad, don't worry about me. I know you'll get me out. Get the other kids out first. What happened? That father possessed character. And what did that character do? It moved upon a child. What did that move upon the child? It moved upon other children and other people. Why? Because he said, if you need me, I'll be there. The ability to carry out a good resolution long after the mood in which it was made has left you. You follow up and follow through. When an organization knows that anything we say we're going to do, we do, that's stickiness. But when an organization hears from a leader or hears from someone saying, oh, we're going to do this, and it never happens, do you know how many employees I hear this from them? I sent them an email, I sent them a text, I left them a voicemail, but I never heard back. And they're in the same department, sometimes even in the same building. Character. Number 2, helps with stickiness, is passion. Do you have it? Passion is what takes us from mediocrity to excellence. You see, the difference between doing things that are excellent has to do with this one word, passion. When people have passion for something, that's when they produce excellence. One of the things I ask people all the time, I ask employees and leaders, what's your passion? What's your passion? What's your passion? What's your passion? And if I can find out what your passion is, I know you're going to do it fantastically and you'll make a difference. Passion is that thing inside of us that causes us to want to truly make a difference. And when there is an organization filled with people that have passion for what they're doing, watch what happens. But it's within our core. But here's the discouraging part. The discouraging part is a lot of times our passion gets squished. It gets put aside. We start losing the passion from all the other things that go on. We've got to keep kindling the passion continually. I want to share with this story. If you folks know Jake Steinfeld by chance, do y'all know who I say when I say Jake Steinfeld? You remember that name at all? No one here? This is dating myself. I realize this, Jan. It's dating myself here. Jake Steinfeld used to have a thing. It was called Body by Jake. And Jake sold videos. You know what I'm talking about now? Okay, and he sold equipment, you know, the whole different pieces of equipment. And he had a TV show for working out. Does anybody know now what I'm talking about? Okay, thank you. So I'm flying from Philadelphia to Los Angeles, and I'm sitting next to Jake Steinfeld. And we start talking, and we're laughing and carrying on. He's a great guy. And he turns to me and says, Bob, do you know what I just did? I said, what's that? He said, I was just on the QVC Home Shopping Network. He said, do you know how much of my product I sold in 2 hours? I said, no, Jake, how much? He said, I sold over $350,000 of my product in 2 hours. I said, Jake, that's fantastic. And I asked Jake the same question I've asked every leader that I see is successful. I asked them the same question. I say, what is your secret to success? And he looked at me and gave me one word. And what was the one word? Passion. He said, Bob, if I don't have passion for what I do, I couldn't sell one thing. If I don't have passion for what I do, I cannot move people to make a difference in their life. Passion is so important. I think of passion, it doesn't mean it's a leadership thing, but it's an everybody thing. I think of passion, I think of a hotel maid in Harvey's Hotel Casino in Lake Tahoe. I was just coming in from a full day of skiing with my kids. My kids went into the adjoining room to mine, went in their room, I went in my room. As I got in my room, I heard my kids yell, Dad! Dad! Now, when your kids are screaming, you think something's wrong, so you're going to go in. So I went running, I said, what's wrong? And they said, Dad, this is incredible. And here's what happened. One hotel maid, I'd probably passed in the hallway many times, never thought anything about it. But one hotel maid had passion for her job. Probably paid the least amount of money in the organization, but she had passion for her job. And here's what she did. She realized she was in a child's room because my kids bring stuffed animals and dolls with them. And so she went over and she took those dolls and stuffed animals, she put them on their heads on the pillow, and she tucked them into bed. And my kids said, Dad, look at this. They tucked our dolls into bed. And then at the top of their voices, they shouted out, this is the best hotel in the world. Why? Because one hotel maid had passion for her job. If you talk to my kids today, they're now a lot older. But I'll say, what's the best hotel? And they go, Harvey's Hotel Casino. One maid. I think of the fire departments. I hear about firefighters. And I hear about folks that show up at little old ladies' houses that can't shovel their own snow, and they get out and shovel that sidewalk and get shovels so they can get to the mail. Or about those firefighters that get together and go to that little couple they can't get by, and they mow their lawn and take care of it. That's passion that makes a difference. It's going above and beyond. And when there is an organization that has passion for what they're doing, that's the stickiness, because I want to be a part of that. And people love to be a part of that. That's what builds loyalty. The last one is integrity. Integrity is something that, as I approach this one, is probably going to be different than what you think about it. Because I want to suggest to you that integrity is what I call the change agent for organizations. Because you see, people that lack integrity are people that I call the whiners of the organization. Do you have whiners in your organization? Oh, we got to talk. Everybody feels this way. You ever notice when a whiner is whining, they have a chair attached to them? Why do they have a chair attached to them? They know they're going to be with you a long time, so they want to sit down. And what we have is these people, and what they do is they whine. And here's what I can tell you. When people start whining, what they're really saying is, I don't feel I have power in myself to affect change. And when I don't feel like I have power in myself to affect change, guess what? I start whining about it. Every time you've got a whiner, it's because they think, I don't have the power to make a change. You see, integrity says, I do have the power. And we go from the I have no power to I can do this. And I want to tell you a story about a firefighter that came up to me. I was speaking in I don't know where I was. It was a large meeting somewhere. And he came up to me And after it was gone, he said, "Sir, can I talk to you when you're done with everybody?" I said, "Sure." So I finished the folks talking to me, and he stuck around, and he said, "Sir, can you help me?" I said, "I'll try. What's up?" He said, and he starts telling me about his department. He said, "Man, my department's a mess. I've got a chief that doesn't care. I've got a battalion chief that doesn't know what he's doing. He shouldn't be a battalion chief. I've got a captain that's just awful. I've got a lieutenant that just doesn't do it." And he was just going on complaining. And as I'm listening to it, I finally, I said, "Excuse me, young man." I said, "Excuse me." He said, "Yes." I said, "Do you want my help?" And he goes, "Yeah." I said, "Because I think you just want to cry." He goes, "I'm not crying." I said, "No, but you're whining a lot. And would you like to, if you want to keep whining, let me know, because I'm going to give you a time limit. But if you want help, let's talk." He goes, "I want help." I said, "You really want help?" He said, "Yeah, I really want help." "Are you sure?" "I really want help." I said, "So here's what I want to do with you. I'm going to give you help, and if you will take what I'm giving you, I will guarantee you it's going to help your problem." He said, "Really?" I said, "Yes. It's going to change your department." He said, "Really?" I said, "Yes." I said, "But what I'm going to ask you to do, you can't complain about it. You just got to do it." He said, "Okay." I said, "Can you," let me stop right here why I say the word can. I go back to what I said to you earlier. When people feel they can't do something, that's when they get negative and they start whining, and integrity gets affected. At the heart of the word integrity is the word grit, G-R-I-T. Grit means firmness of mind and spirit. You see, people that have grit, they got that firmness of mind and spirit, and that's what makes a difference. That's what causes them to say, "I can do this. I can make a difference." And so I said, "Here's what I want you to do. Can you, for 1 month, come to, your shift starts at 0700? He said, "Yes, sir." I said, "I'll tell you what. Can you come for 1 month at 6:30, show up at your station with your uniform on, your pants tucked in your boots zipped up, ready to work right away?" He goes, "Oh, sir, no, that's not the way I do it." I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "I like to come with my flip-flops and shorts and tank top, and then I get there, and then I change to my uniform. That's what I like to do. I want to do it that way." I said, "You said you wanted my help, right?" He goes, Yeah, I want your help." I said, "So I'm going to ask you again. Can you, for 1 month, be at this station at 6:30 with your uniform on, your boots, your pants tucked in your boots, your boots laced, zipped up, ready to go? Can you do that for 1 month?" And he said, "Yes, I can do that for 1 month." I said, "Because you said you wanted my help. I'll give you my help for 1 month." He said, "Okay, for 1 month." I said, "Here's the second thing. Can you, for 1 month, go up to the person that you're relieving on your shift, and you're taking his place from the other shift? Can you go up to him face to face and find out all the information you can find out about apparatus, equipment, and anything that happened on the previous shift that you need to know about? Can you do that for 1 month, have that little talk with him, and take that time for that exchange, that handoff from that person?" He goes, "Oh, Bob, there's a problem there." I said, "What's that?" The person I take their place, they have to go get their kids and go to school, so they want to get out of there right away. So I said, whoa, wait a minute. What time does your shift start? 0700. What time does theirs end? 0700. I said, "I'm asking you to be there at 6:30. That's right. So if you get there, how long do you think it would take for you to talk to that person face to face and get all that information I just asked you about? How long would it take?" He said, "Maybe 15 minutes. I said, "Okay, let's do the math. You get there at 6:30, you meet for 15 minutes, that gets to 6:45. We still have 15 minutes for that guy to do whatever he's got to do and get out of there, and you're able to keep going. Can you do that for 1 month?" "Yeah, I can do that for 1 month." I said, "Can you, for 1 month, find 1 to 5 things around your station that need to be fixed or organized or made better?" Oh, we do shift duties and station duties all the time." I said, "I'm not talking about shift duties and station duties. I'm talking about going above and beyond, that you go around, find something that is broken, needs to be fixed, something that needs to be organized, something that needs to be put together better. Can you, for 1 month, do that 1 to 5 things?" He said, 1 to 5? So 1 to 5. He said, I can do that." I said, "Great." I said, "Okay, last thing. Can you, for 1 month, take 15 minutes out of your day and feed your brain?" He said, "What?" I said, "Feed your brain. Put something positive in your brain. A podcast, a book on tape, something that goes positive in your brain for 15 minutes. He said, why? I said, "Well, let me ask you, did you eat today?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Did you eat last week?" "Yes." "Did you eat the week before?" "Yes." I said, "You know what happened? Your stomach told you that I'm hungry and you ate. It was telling you I'm hungry and you ate. I want to tell you right now, your brain is screaming saying, I'm hungry, I need some food. Because what you've got up here is rotten. You got to get something better." Will you take 15 minutes every day for 1 month and put something positive in your brain, whether it's through a podcast or a book on tape, something? And he said, "Well, that seems like a lot of time." I said, 15 minutes. I said, "How long does it take you to get from your house to the station?" And all of a sudden he smiled. He said, 20 minutes. I said, so whoa. You're telling me you go from your house to station 20 minutes, you can listen to something for 15 minutes and still have 5 minutes to listen to your music. He said, I guess you're right. And then you can do it, go home. Yeah. And I said, then when you're not on shift, go ahead and try 15 minutes a day. You got time, you can do that. 1 month went by because part of our deal was this. I said, I'm going to give you what I think can help you make a difference here, but here's what you've got to do. After 1 month, you have to call me. I'm not going to call you. You call me. And I do this to a lot of folks, and I'll tell you right now, a lot of people don't call back. I never hear from some people that I talk to because they don't take that responsibility seriously. But that young man called me. He said, hello, Bob, this is so-and-so. He said, do you remember me? And I said, I do. I said, how's it going? He said, Bob, I can tell you right now, we have one of the best departments around. I said, what? He said, I want to tell you, our chief is probably one of the smartest guys I've met. It's amazing what he's doing. And he said, and he starts telling me the things that he put together and he made better at his station. And he said, and then he told me this. He said, I want to start working towards becoming a lieutenant in our department. In fact, I think I want to work my way up in the department. What happened? I took him from a place where integrity was lacking because why? He was whining because he didn't think he can do anything. So basically he was just going to whine about it, to saying, you do have power, you can make a difference. Because what I pointed out to him in the midst of that talking, I said, made this one statement to him. And I said, is integrity important to you? And he said, yes. I said, well, guess what? When you make changes, you are showing me you're a person of integrity. But when all you do is whine about it, you're showing me integrity is lacking. Firmness of mind and spirit. So what I can say to you is when you have organizations that work on their core, character, passion, integrity, what we start doing is getting stickiness, making a difference there. But there's also something else important. It has to do with succession planning. And this is, we need to recognize and develop what we call champions on every level in the organization. Here's what I tell the chiefs all the time. You've got champions on every single shift, at every single station, wherever you go, you've got champions. You've got to find them and start developing them. And what do I mean by champions? Champions are the people that may not have a title, but they've got a testimony. They may have a title, but they may not have a title, but they have a testimony. I've got a lot of people have the title of a leader in some role, but it doesn't, just because I have a title doesn't make me a leader. Is that not true? I got a lot of people that are chiefs but are not leaders. I got a lot of people that are captains that are not leaders. But true champions are people that don't have to have a title to be recognized as a champion. What's a testimony? A testimony is evidence or proof provided by the existence or appearance of something. In other words, when you see that person, you see they have it in them. They've got the stuff. I think of a champion. I tell you someone who had a title. Goliath had a title. Y'all know Goliath? He was a giant. He was over the Philistines, right? But David had the testimony. He killed the lion and the bear and took care of Goliath. Pharaoh had the title, leader of Egypt. Moses had the testimony, led him out. I have a friend of mine, his name's Scott Hamilton. Some of you, I don't know if you know Scott Hamilton. Scott Hamilton won Olympic gold medal for the U.S. figure skating team, and he also won 4 world championships. Scott has the title. But I want to tell you about a young little girl that works with Scott that has the testimony. She's 13 years old. She gets up every morning at 4 o'clock in the morning, goes downstairs, makes her breakfast, makes her lunch, is in the car at 5:30 waiting for her parents to take her to the ice rink. She goes to the ice rink and she's on the ice at 5:45 and she's on there for 3 hours, then goes to school for 4 hours, goes back to the ice in the afternoon for another 2.5 hours, then goes to ballet for 2 hours at night. She does that 5 days a week, and on Saturday she skates for another 3 hours. Last year she won 2 national titles in ice dancing. That 13-year-old has the testimony. You have people in your organization that have the testimony. They have the proof that they've got the stuff. But how do we develop these people? What do we do? Well, first of all, folks, number one, make it intentional but not formal. And I can't tell you enough how this is important, because here's where I see the fire service causes problems, and that's this. A lot of times we get this idea and we go, oh, let's make it into a program. And we want to make it something formal, and that's when we kill it. Make it intentional. I'm going to find the champions in our department and I'm going to develop them, but I'm not going to have to go up to them and say, you are one of my champions, so I'm going to work with you. I'm going to bestow this thing on you. No, I sit down and they don't even know I'm working with them this way. I'm making it intentional, but not formal. Number two, accountability that produces consistency. Here's what I can tell you. One of the problems I find that causes organizations to be affected the most is a lack of accountability. And it's either leaders that don't want to be held accountable themselves or they're not willing to hold their people accountable. But when we have accountability, it's going to produce consistency. It's going to make a big difference. It's going to cause people to want to do what we do. And here's what I find. I go into a lot of departments and I find leaders that don't want to keep people accountable because they want people to like them. They want to be everybody's buddy. So we get mixed up between buddyship and leadership. But here's the point I want to make. And if you don't hear anything I say today, please hear this. The job or role of a leader is not to make people happy. It's to make them better. The job or role of a leader is not to make people happy, it's to make them better. And when I understand that when I take time to work with the people I'm working with, I'm not here to try to make them happy, but I know if I have to confront someone that's doing something that's below standard performance, I'm doing this not because I don't like them, but because I care enough that I want them to be the best. I want my crew, I want my department to be the best. I want to make a difference wherever we go. And guess what? When they see that in their leadership, it's amazing how they'll rise to the top. But accountability produces consistency is awesome. Number 3 is we want to recognize achievements to produce motivation. I ask leaders all the time, what's the number 1 motivator for people in the workforce? And guess what they always give me, number 1? What do you think it is? Money. Why is money not number 1? It's because money's temporary. We pay so much money, someone so much money today, what do we want tomorrow? More money. So we always see it changing. When I tell you what the number 1 motivator for people in the workforce is, you might go, but hang in there, it's going to make sense to you. The number 1 motivator for people in the workforce is actually achievement. When people achieve something, they're motivated. Give you an example. Is there anybody here that's a to-do list person? Anybody do to-do list? You do to-do list? Okay. Now, let's say you've got a to-do. What's your first name? Steve, you got a to-do list, right? And you take care of every single item on your to-do list in one day. How do you feel at the end of the day? You're pumped up, right? You're motivated. Why? You get that Rocky theme. Da-da-da, da-da-da. Why? Because look what I got done. When people are achieving something, they're motivated. Number 2 is recognition. So here's what I can tell you. When you recognize achievements, you're giving people the number 1 and number 2 motivator. And when you start doing that, you reinforce it right away. But here's what a lot of leaders do. Someone will do something great. And we don't recognize it for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. And we get done and go, oh, by the way, what you did 2 months ago or 3 months ago, 4 months, way to go. Is that going to have an impact on that person? No. But when they do it and I immediately recognize that achievement, what am I doing? I'm reinforcing the right behavior. And what are they going to say? I want to do this again. This feels good. When leaders understand the importance of recognizing achievements that produce motivation, you recognize it right away. It reinforces that champion behavior, makes a big difference. And the last point in developing champions is to give them responsibility input that produces big picture understanding. Here's what I mean by that. Take these champions, whatever level, and get them included in certain areas that maybe they normally wouldn't be included. I always tell people, let them be a part of a meeting that you're having that might be at a higher level so they see what's going on, because here's what's going to happen. They get that exposure for that meeting at a higher level. They get in the station, and someone sitting around the kitchen table starts complaining about something. They will do this. These champions will do this. They'll say, no, excuse me, that's not right. I sat in the meeting. Here's what I can tell you that is the truth. And they will step in the gap for you and make a difference. But when we produce champions, it's amazing what happens. But here's one of the keys, is taking the time to let them know the value they have. There's so many people that never get the idea that they have value for the organization. And they have incredible value. Ben Hooper was born without a father. Ben Hooper was born in a time when you just didn't have, you had to have a father. That was the time of, this was way back in the 1900s, and everybody, if you didn't have a father, there was something wrong with you or something wrong with your mother. And so he was very ashamed of that, and he always kind of avoided people because he knew the people in the town would talk. It was a little town in Tennessee he lived in. And so Ben Hooper noticed that the kids would say bad things about him or say, he doesn't have a daddy. We don't know who his daddy is. And so Ben Hooper, when he tells a story when he was 6 years old, he would go to school and he would sit by himself at lunchtime. When he would go out and play in the playground, he said all the other kids would play together. He said, but he played by himself because he was so put down because he didn't have a father. One day there was a young pastor that came to his town in East Tennessee. And this young pastor got up and he did his sermon. And after the service was over, Ben Hooper was leaving the church. He was trying to sneak out because he didn't want to talk to anybody because he didn't want to be embarrassed anymore. As he's trying to sneak out, he felt a hand on his shoulder. Ben Hooper says he turns around and he looks, and it's that young pastor that just moved in the area. He's looking right in the eye, and he says this to him. He says, boy, who's your daddy? Whose father is yours? And he said at that time, everybody in the church stopped. They froze. And everybody, instead of walking out, they turned around and said, what is going to happen now? And then Ben Hooper says this. That pastor has, all of a sudden, he saw what was going on. And a big smile came across his face. He says, I know who you are. I should have seen the resemblance before. You have an incredible inheritance. He says, I know your father. You are a child of God. Ben Hooper would say later on that one event is what changed his life to go in a different direction. Ben Hooper went on to being elected one of the governors of the state of Tennessee. Why? Someone took time to recognize in him his value. When you find champions and you recognize and make a difference, it's huge what takes place. The last piece I want to give you today has to do with you as a chief and a leader in your department. And I want to talk about maintaining the right input, because here's what I know. I know that there's input we get a lot of times. Let me ask this question. What kind of input do you get most of the time? Do you get more negative or more positive? Most chiefs will tell me more negative. I get negative, constant, negative. And you think about all that negative input you get, then the question is, what do you do to intentionally receive better input? You get all that input, it gets in there. So what I want to talk to you about is what I call your inflow and your outflow. And this is important. You see, leaders, we need to understand we're going to have inflow, but we also have to have outflow. If you don't have outflow from the inflow, it's going to kill you. It's going to hurt you. It's going to cause trouble for you. Because what I know is this, whatever comes in must what? Go. You got negative coming in, it's going to come out. And sometimes if you don't do anything about it, it's going to come out in a bad way. Number two is if negative stays in, it will create problems and conflict. And problems and conflict I see happen in so many chiefs and so many leaders I meet. I watch it just tear them up and tear them down. I've watched guys when I first met them as leaders in their department, man, they were go-getters and excited. But after all the stuff they've gone through, they find them, I just watch them slowly getting worn down. Folks, if you got negative coming in, you got to get the negative out. And so what I want to recommend is you got to get the emotions out. I have a friend of mine that's probably been on every single major disaster in the world in the last 30 years. This man, you probably a lot of you know, and he told me that it's amazing all the stories he tells me, but he was telling me a story about this one country he went to and all the devastation and all the death. And I mean incredible. Where we're talking, they were just picking bodies up by the big bucket loads and burying them in this big burial area. And he said it was just terrible. And I said to him, what do you do with that stuff? What do you do with all that negative stuff? And here's what he said to me. 7-Eleven store. I said, 7-Eleven store? He said, 7-Eleven store. I said, what do you mean 7-Eleven store? He says, when my plane lands and I go and get my car to go home, he says, before I get home, I go to the 7-Eleven store near my house. I pull around behind it, I turn my car off, and I get the emotions out. Now, I don't know if he cries. I don't know if he screams. I don't know if he yells. I don't know what he does. But he said that's what he has to do. He's got to get the emotions out before he goes home to see his family, to be with his family. He's got to get the emotions out. Let me tell you a story about, I call my flying fork story. By the way, some of you know this, some of you don't. I'm married to a battalion chief. My wife and I have been married for 3 years. And 3 years ago, we found out my wife had cancer. And she was a paramedic firefighter for, she's been over 20 years, I don't know how many years now. And she's fought fires all over California and Idaho. And what she does is she's over 6 fire departments and 1 paramedic agency doing all the QA, QI for them. So she does a lot. We live in Nashville, Tennessee, and she commutes to Idaho, believe it or not. And so my wife found she had cancer. And what was really, it was something that we weren't expecting, we weren't ready for it. And we said, in fact, when she found she had cancer, we literally got married in 1 week. I said, you're not going to go through this by yourself. We were down in Miami walking through the intercoastal canals of Miami there, downtown Miami. And I was there for a conference, and she was walking with me. We were walking along. There's this guy that had a little dog, and we stopped and talked to the guy about his dog. And we're standing there. I hear this. Boink! Tinkle, tinkle, tinkle. I'm thinking, what is that? I look over at my wife. She's holding her head. She said, I just got hit in the head with a bottle. And the guy with the dog said, it wasn't a bottle. It was a fork. And here's what happened. In those intercoastals down in Miami, they have these big yachts that will come through, and they have parties on them and everything. Well, there was a guy, I'm assuming it was a guy, having the party, and he had a shrimp fork. And he got probably tired of the shrimp fork. He said, I don't need it. And he threw it. Now, they were probably at least 100 yards away. Somehow that shrimp fork, hang in here with me, that shrimp fork caught the wind and came over and hit my wife in the head. Now, because she's a paramedic, I've learned if it's not bleeding, we're okay. It wasn't bleeding, fine. So we were walking back to our hotel, and I'm talking. I look over at my wife, and tears are rolling down her face. I said, honey, what's going on? She said, what are the odds? She said, what are the odds we could be walking along these intercoastal ways of Miami, enjoying ourselves, minding our own business, not bugging anybody, and someone would throw a fork from a yacht 100 yards away, catch the wind, come over, and hit me in the head? What are the odds? She said, is it 1,000,000 to 1? 2,000,000 to 1? And I realized that wasn't really what she wanted to talk to me about. Because then what she said was this. She said, what are the odds? I have been tested. My DNA was tested, and there were no markers for cancer. She said, no one in my family's ever had this cancer. What are the odds that I would get this cancer? She went back with me back to the hotel that night, and she laid her head on my chest, and she cried. She cried all night long. I woke up in the morning, my t-shirt was just wet from all her tears. But what happened is she had a catalyst. It was a flying fork, but she had a catalyst to get the emotions out. I don't know how you get your emotions out, people. But I am challenging you right now, whatever you do in your job, you got to get them out. It has to be. For mental health and wellness, you got to get it out. But when you have a catalyst, it makes a big, because if you got something coming in, it's got to go out. This is a picture of my wife when she went through it. Isn't she beautiful? You want to see what she looks like today? That's my wife. So here's what I know. I want to challenge you not to have the attitude, take this job and shove it, but let's take this job and love it. Let's take the time that when we talk about recruitment, let's make it a calling. When we talk about retention, let's go to the core. We talk about succession planning, let's find champions. And when you got garbage coming in, guys, get the garbage out. I want to give you 2 stories and I want to be done, okay? 2 stories. Are you going to be okay with 2 stories? First story happens with the fire chief that I talked to in this last year. He was actually received Fire Chief of the Year in his area, in his state. He was recognized. He's been recognized all over the country being an incredible fire chief. And I talked to him, and he was just getting really discouraged. And he was just feeling overwhelmed, and he was saying, Bob, I don't know if I can keep doing this. He said, I don't know if I can do it. He said, I'm just burned out. He said, I feel like I'm struggling everywhere I turn. I'm trying to get this problem solved, and another problem comes up. I'm trying to get the contract ratified, and then we think we get it, then we have another problem. He said, I got all this stuff going on. He said, and I'm hated. And he said, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. And I said the same thing I said to that firefighter. I said, you want some help? And remember, folks, that's always important. When someone is going through something, it's better for you, instead of giving advice, you ask, do you want some help? Because if they don't want any help, it's no use you telling them. I said, you want some help? He said, yes, I'd like some help. I said, I want to have you do something that I know you're not going to want to do. In fact, when I tell you you're not going to do it, you're just going to say, I don't want to do it. I said, but I challenge you to do it. It's going to make a difference. He said, what's that? He said, I want you to find a quiet place where no one is. No one's around. And he said, I want you to sit down with a pad of paper. At the top of the paper, I want you to put down, I like my job because. And he starts doing this to me. I said, what? He goes, I can't do that. He said, I don't know anything about my job I like. I don't know anything about my job I like. I said, well, you want some help? He said, okay. I said, well, go get a pad of paper. So he goes to get a pad of paper. I sit down, put down, I like my job because. I said, now let me ask you a question. Do you get paid for your job? He said, yeah. I said, put down, I like my job because I get paid. I said, let me ask you something. Do you get benefits in your job? Yeah, I get benefits. I said, right, I like my job because I get benefits. In fact, he said, I really like my benefits. In fact, I really get paid well. I like that. I said, do they give you a vehicle? Yeah. I said, write that down. I love my job. I like my job because I get a vehicle. I said, you get vacation? He said, oh yeah, I get 4 weeks. I said, wow, put that down. I like my job because I get vacation. And he started to catch on. He goes, oh, I got another one. And he starts writing some things down. And he started writing them down. I said, now, here's what I want you to do next. And I'll guarantee you're not going to want to do what I'm going to tell you next, but here's the next thing I want you to do. I said, I want you tomorrow morning when you get up, I want you to walk in your bathroom, look in your mirror, and look in your eyes. Why do I say that, folks? The eyes are the window of the soul. I said, I want you to look in the mirror, and here's what I want you to do. I want you to look at that list. I want you to cross off the word like my job, and I want you to put the word love my job. He goes, no way. I go, no, I won't put it. And I said, this is what I want you to do. When you look at yourself in the mirror, I want you to say this. I love my job because, and I want you to read what you wrote down there. And then you do it again, and do it again, and do it again. He said, seriously? I said, seriously. I know you're going to think this is stupid, but I want you to do it. He tells the story that he did it for the first 2 days, and his wife was wondering what's going on. He said by the end of the first week, she would say to him, get in the bathroom, you need to do that again. Go ahead and do it again. So she was going to encourage him to go do it. He did it for 1 month. He called me up after 1 month. I said, well, how's it going? He said, Bob, he says, I can't believe this. I said, what can't you believe? He said, I can't believe how that little stupid exercise you asked me to do has made a difference for me. I said, really? I said, tell me what's happening. He says, Bob, I start to see some things that are with my job that I like, and I start to see things that I appreciate, and I start to see a little thing here, and a little thing there, and a little thing over here, and all these little things are starting to add up, and I'm thinking, man, this is not bad at all. And he said, let me tell you, the greatest thing that's happened for me by doing this simple little stupid exercise you gave me is by doing it, I got my passion back. I have passion for what I'm doing. Folks, some of us, we got to get our passion back. Take the time to look at the good that you've got. Last story. Everybody sit up straight in your chairs, please. Sit up straight in your chairs. I want you to pretend that you are in a theater. You're here to watch the musical Man of La Mancha. There's a curtain in front of you. What color is the curtain? Oh, red. Okay, we got a red curtain. There we go. Now, we're listening to the orchestra warm up. Can you hear the orchestra? Help me out. Oh, it's a sick orchestra. There we go. Okay, now, we're sitting in our chairs, so we'll see what this is going to be all about. And the lights go down in the place, and the lights come back up, and then the lights go down the second time, the curtain begins to rise. As the curtain goes up, we all begin to applaud. Onto the stage walks this man. He says, I am Don Quixote. I'm a mighty knight. I conquer kingdoms. I save fair maidens. I'm a mighty knight. And as he says that, we all kind of snicker like he doesn't look like a knight. But with Don Quixote is his sidekick, Sancho. And he has asked Sancho to go find him some armor because every knight needs some armor. And so Sancho has gone to the dump and he found some ugly, beat-up, rusty armor. And he brings it back to Don Quixote. Now, a lot of us, if our best friend brings us back, oh, that rusty, beat-up, crummy armor, we would say something like this to them. Don't you care? But not Don Quixote, because Don Quixote can see in things something others cannot see. He sees value, he sees worth, he sees potential. And he says, Sancho, this is magnificent. And he picks up the armor and he puts it on and he gets in his knightly pose and he says, I am Don Quixote. I'm a mighty knight. I conquer kingdoms, I save fair maidens. And he begins to sing the song. Remember the song? To dream the impossible dream. To fight the unbeatable foe. And he gets to that great crescendo at the end of the song. And we all start to get goosebumps. And this is great. And the curtain comes down. We think to ourselves, we're going to enjoy this. We can relate to this guy, can't we? Don't we have impossible dreams that are out there? We're not sure how we're going to attain those dreams, but we got them out there. You know what I'm saying? Curtain goes up the second time. This time, this is a tavern scene. People are singing and dancing, having a great time. And I want you to notice this woman right here. Her name is Aldonza. She makes her living by day working in the bar, and at night she makes her living on her back. You know what I'm saying? Okay, now, from this side of the stage, on the stage comes our would-be knight. He comes in, click, click, clink, clink, clink. Someone in the tavern turns around and says, who are you? And Don Quixote stops. He says, I am Don Quixote. I'm a mighty knight. I conquer kingdoms. I save fair maidens. I'm a mighty knight. And everybody in the tavern laughs, and so do we. And then he sits down. As he sits down, the barmaid, Aldonza, walks over to him and she says, yeah, what do you want? And Don Quixote looks up and his eyes widen and brighten. He says, I want you. You shall be my lady and I'll be your knight. She says, I'm not your lady and you're no knight. He says, oh, but you will be. In fact, I'm going to call you Dulcinea, my beautiful lady, and you can call me Don Quixote. And she looks at him and she says, you're no knight and I'm no lady. Now give me your order or get out of here. Curtain goes down the second time. And we think to ourselves, we can relate to this guy, can't we? We go after impossible dreams and we try to reach them, and what do people do? They shoot us down. We start thinking about those family members that said, who do you think you are? Or that person we work with that says, oh, get real, you can't do that. We start thinking of all those negative messages where people told us we couldn't do something, that were trying to take away our power. Curtain goes up the third time. This time there's no one on the stage, but from this side of the stage, onto the stage walks this woman. Her clothes are ripped and torn, and she's weeping, and she falls in a heap in the middle of the stage. As she was walking across, we recognized her. It was Aldonza. It was that barmaid. It looks like she's been beat up, maybe even raped. From this side of the stage comes in our would-be knight. Clink, clink, clink. And he comes in, he says, my lady, what has happened? She turns around, she says, can't you see I'm not your lady and you're not my knight? He says, oh, but you are. You're my Dulcinea, my beautiful lady, and I'm your knight, Don Quixote. And she says, can't you see that you're no one's knight and I'm no one's lady? Can't you see that I'm nothing but a barroom whore? Can't you see that my mother should have left me in the ditch where I was born? Can't you see? And Don Quixote's eyes widen and brighten. He says, oh, I do see. I see a lady, my beautiful lady. And he begins to sing this beautiful love song to her. And as he sings, she cries. And as she cries, he sings. Curtain goes down the third time. And then we think to ourselves, there's the impossible dream. We work and we work and we work with people and we swear they're never going to change. And we look at them, and maybe really what it comes down to, maybe the real impossible dream in life is not so much what I'm trying to do for me. Maybe the real impossible dream is what I'm trying to do and help others see in themselves and others to become for themselves. Maybe that's the real impossible dream. Curtain goes up the fourth time. This time on the stage there's a bed, and we're listening to music. It's funeral music. We're getting the idea whoever's in that bed must be dying. And we're looking, we know, it's Don Quixote. It's the knight. And then we think to ourselves, isn't that the way it works? You get an impossible dream, you start to go after it, and what do? You die. You die. And we just start to think to ourselves, life stinks. When from this side of the stage, onto the stage, steps out this woman. She's dressed beautifully. There's a small veil over her face. And the moment she steps out there and walks with grace across the stage, we all gasp. Let's try it again. We all gasp. She walks over beside Don Quixote's bed, and she reaches down, she touches him on the shoulder. She says, my lord, my lord. And Don Quixote opens his eyes, and he asks the same questions that we've all been asking. Who are you? And then the woman lifts the small veil that's been over her face, and the moment she lifts it, there's another gasp. She said, don't you recognize me, my lord? I am Dulcinea, your lady, and you are Don Quixote, my knight. And at that moment, it's as if someone takes a knife and pierces our heart, and we say, that's it. You work and you work and you work with people, and you think they're never going to change. But the truth is people can change, and people do change. Sometimes it can take a lifetime. But here's what I know. For people to change, for lives to be transformed, it takes someone to be their Don Quixote. Someone who sees in them their value, their worth, and their potential. And when we take the time to do that, that's when we see the love of the job. Take your job and love it. Make a difference. Guys, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for a great time. Thank you. How do we do on time? Get you out on time? I hope so. By the way, if you want any information, there's my QR code. If you want to get in contact with me, there you go.